right, y'all, it's race weekend. We're in Hungary this weekend. We got a great show for you. We're here to talk about fantasy strategy and lineup for the Formula One Hungarian GP. After another exciting weekend in Spa. Spa never lets us down, I don't think, does it? I mean, when was the last time we saw a boring race at Spa?
Last
when
week.
they didn't have one.
Last
And
week.
last week was a little boring too.
Thank you, Race Control.
Okay. Fair enough. I thought it was, decent, but hey, let's get into it. Before we get into it, let's do introductions. Actually, I'm Ross. I'm the founder and CEO of GridRival. If you're new and you haven't been to one of these before, with me today I have William Laddie, our principal software engineer, and Ryan Booth, director of business operations. Michael Ursinoli, our CTO, is out sick again. We promised that he is okay and will make a return to the show, but he's getting some rest. Shall we get into salary adjustments after last week? Lots to talk about. Looks like we had a fair mix of drivers moving up and down, which is pretty common in Formula One. It looks like we had, 9 drivers go down in value, 11 go up in value. Not too abnormal. Fernando Alonso and Kimi Antonelli down 2 million. Sainz 1.9, Hulkenberg and Colapinto down 1.8. Isaac Hadjar down 1.5. Is that two races in a row for him? He's dropped. He definitely hit his ceiling. He dropped 2 million the race before, right? If memory serves correct.
Yeah, I think he collided with Antonelli 2 races ago. That sounds right.
Yeah. Hamilton down 900K. Esteban Ocon 300K down. Russell down 100K. On the winning side, you had Bortoleto, Lawson, and Albon all up $2 million. Leclerc and Piastri up 1.3, Oliver Behrman up 1.1, Tsunoda and Lando Norris up 700K, Max Verstappen up 600K, Lance Stroll and Pierre Gasly up 400K, which I believe is 2 races for the stroller coaster to be on an incline, if I'm not mistaken. But I do have a notoriously poor memory, so that can be wrong. On to constructors. Biggest loser, biggest value changer of all. It was otherwise actually quite stable, but Aston Martin lost 2.4 million. Haas down 700K, VCarb down 300K, Alpine down 200, Mercedes down only 100. On the winning side, you had Kick Sauber up 1.5, Red Bull up 1, Williams up 500,000, McLaren up 300K, Ferrari up 200K. So not a lot of movement on the constructor side this week. We will get into Hungary. And again, if you're new here, the way that we do this is we go by groups or tiers of drivers based off of driver salary on the GridRival game. And we will discuss and also try and answer any of your questions you have on specific tiers. So if you do have a question, get it in. We'll try our best to answer in real time if it relates to the exact tier we're talking about. And as many of you have come to love, our famous Ryan Booth has started to name these tiers. So Ryan, why don't you kick us off with tier 1 this weekend, which is the same as tier 1 last weekend. It's a tier of its own, which is the 2 McLaren drivers, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, almost tied in value. Lando at 29, Piastri at 28.8. What are we calling this tier this weekend?
Well, I do. First of all, I feel like this tier of these 2 guys might not change for the rest of the season. The way things are trending, they might just be 1-2 flip-flopping back and forth. I don't see anyone else touching them. But this is the Dairy Queen Blizzard tier. It's just like you were a kid, you played your sporting event, you went out with the team. Everybody got Dairy Queen. So it's a team orders tier because I think team orders are going to start to come into effect here. These 2 will be out front racing all day long. And as we saw last year in Hungary, team orders was kind of the major story coming out of that Grand Prix. So we'll see how that goes. And everybody loves a Dairy Queen Blizzard. So everybody loves these 2 drivers.
For what it's worth, I think last weekend we said, if you had to choose between 1 or 2 of these, it's probably Piastri. I still feel like that way. Piastri's average points for the season per race are 5 points higher than Lando Norris, which at this price range and as close as they are is actually a pretty big gap. 160 per race versus 165 for Piastri. I know the goal of these tier discussions is to kind of say which one of these drivers we pick and maybe which one we'd avoid. And I think in this scenario, I think we probably all agree both of these are good picks. If you are in a position where you have to choose one or two of them, I think Piastri is arguably a very, very tiny discount. I feel like you can't go wrong with either of them if you're trying to fill a top spot in your roster.
Both are rosterable. I like Piastri slightly better because Norris can't defend pole, as we saw last week. Race control gave him every possible break. They gave him the delay. They gave him the rolling start. He still couldn't hold his teammate off. I'm done with Norris on pole. I'm done with it. Give me Piastri. I think the only way Piastri doesn't win the championship now is if he has problems and Norris doesn't. Which, like, that is still a possibility. We haven't seen McLaren have any technical issues in race yet, as we have the other Mercedes power teams, but there is a first time for everything, and we do have some more horsepower heavy tracks coming up once we get past the summer break, like Monza, for example. But yeah, it's Piastri's to lose. I like Piastri slightly better, but you can lock either of these drivers up and not lose sleep at night.
I'm going with
You think that,
Norris. I think we've said these guys are pretty even. It's almost a coin flip week in and week out. I am looking at Lando Norris just because he has looked faster in both practice sessions. Granted, he did do this last week, and then, like William said, he blew pole. But I think that I don't know. I just have to go with the metrics here. He's been faster. Maybe FP3 changes things, but I expect Lando to be faster in FP3 and be on pole again. And no one can pass at this track. So as long as he can get to turn one first, which is a big if because it's Lando Norris, I think that he does win this race. So I would go with Lando over Piastri just because he's showing more pace now.
Love it. Let's move on to tier 2. Maybe a little bit more interesting of a tier. In tier 2, we have 4 drivers. We got Max Verstappen at the top at 26.1 million. Below him, Charles Leclerc at 25.7. Below him, George Russell at 24.9, and bringing up the bottom of the tier is Lewis Hamilton at 22.3. A decent spread between those 4 drivers. The spread of average points per race is quite large. At the bottom, you have Lewis Hamilton at 138, Russell 155, Leclerc 142, Verstappen 157. Ryan, what are we calling this tier?
This is the hot dealer tier. All these prices are 22 to 26, which would be very bad numbers to get in blackjack. And this just seems like you're getting 15 and 16 every single time while the dealer is showing a face card. So you don't want to hit, but you have to hit, and you're going to bust pretty much every single time. And I feel like if you pick the wrong one of these drivers, they're all expensive. It could totally sink your lineup.
Which one do you think is most likely to sink your lineup?
Based on this morning, it's probably Verstappen.
Really?
Who knows? Maybe he was just mailing it in. Maybe he doesn't care. He'll show up tomorrow. But he did not look very good in either session.
He did just announce he's going to be back for 2026 with the Red Bull, so maybe he's taking his aggression out on his driving.
Yeah, maybe just because of that, he's so upset that he doesn't even want to show up in Hungary. It is Max. He could just show up tomorrow and be a rocket ship and, qualify in the top 3 and finish in the top 3. But he just looked really brutal this morning. And it's one thing to go after a guy who's looked bad in practice if it's cheap, but spending $26 million on a horrible practice session is not something that I would like to do.
All right. So let's start with my Max take. I think that there should be a dedicated film crew with Max Verstappen and Red Bull throughout 2026. I think that team's going to be a dumpster fire with the new power unit and without Adrian Newey there designing the car. And I think Max Verstappen is going to stir up some drama. And I think Jos Verstappen is going to stir up even more drama. So it's just going to be nothing but drama next year. I think in 2025, Red Bull is done. I think they've basically packed it in at this point. And I don't think we're even going to see Max getting on the podium much at all the rest of the season. So I'm totally out on Max Verstappen. And also look how much closer Tsunoda is when he actually gets the same parts as Verstappen, because he doesn't have his team principal there playing favorites anymore.
Yeah.
So that. We'll start there. Ferrari has made it back onto the podium. They're showing good pace in practice today. I like Leclerc. I think
Hmm.
Hamilton's still a tad behind him, but I think Hamilton is very, very signable at his price, 22.3 million. After that, I like George Russell. Like I think Mercedes probably about fifth or sixth in terms of where they'll finish. I think
So it sounds
Russell,
like your ranking of this, my ranking of this tier would be Leclerc, Hamilton, Russell, Verstappen. It sounds like
yeah,
you're on the
I'm
same
right
page.
there. And we're getting to football season. We're talking about fantasy football drafts. Verstappen is not on my draft board.
Yeah.
Verstappen's just not on my board this week. I don't like him, and I think it's going to be rough times ahead for Red Bull.
Looking at last year's numbers and then free practice so far this weekend, Leclerc is a standout. Of course, in this game, we specifically designed it so you're not making decisions like this in a vacuum, right? Unless you're signing a one race contract. So we obviously have to think beyond this. But at this specific event, Leclerc was third last weekend. He was fourth in Hungary last year. He was third in both FP1 and FP2. And nobody else really in this tier is close to that. FP1 and FP2, you have Verstappen at 9 and 14. You have Russell at 8 and 7. You have Hamilton at 5 and 6. Um, none of them had great performances last weekend either. Russell's fifth, Hamilton seventh. So Leclerc definitely seems like a standout at least this weekend.
If we want to look slightly longer term, like in terms of contract length, so the next race after summer break is going to be a Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. Last year it was Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc, Piastri, Sainz driving for Ferrari. So Ferrari could have the pace there. You've got Monza after that. That's home soil for Ferrari. Uh, so I think they are long-term signable. Just looking at the schedule that's ahead of us. I'm down on Red Bull in 2025. I think that that's a change from last year, and even like from the beginning of this year. Like I'm very down on Red Bull at this point. I think Ferrari will probably be second best after McLaren, and probably second in the constructors this year by the time we're done with it.
William
Yeah.
Caleb Cornelius has asked if you would pay to drop Max Verstappen if you had him.
If practice tomorrow morning continues to look like this, absolutely, because if this is the pace from Verstappen, you're going to lose that value anyway, and you're going to lose out on whatever points you could have been scoring. Uh, it, Hungary is a harder track to pass on, particularly if it's dry. There is a small chance of rain on Sunday, but Hungary is often compared with Monaco, so I wouldn't count on Max being able to make his way up the field if he qualifies badly. If he even has the pace to do so, if the car just doesn't look that fast, I want no part of Max Verstappen. Looking at the data that I have right now, I just don't want him.
Yeah, and if Sonoda's showing improvement, that is fewer teammate points you're going to score. I'm going to wait to see what Max does in FP3 because I think if the car does show pace, even if Max is disgruntled, I think he's enough of a competitor that he's going to go out there and qualifying in the race and actually try to do something versus FP1 and FP2 where he can just go around in a few circles and not care at all. And in terms of long term, I'm not selling Max entirely for the rest of the season until we see more of that happening. And especially with coming out of the break, his home race coming up, I highly doubt that he's going to not care about that. So I'm not ready to push the panic sell button completely on Verstappen. I don't like him this weekend just because of what we've seen today, but that could all change early tomorrow morning. If you're waking up at 4 a.m. I think is FP3 for mountain time at least.
Even if his heart's in it, is the car there anymore? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the car's been that great all season, and we've seen him put up some outstanding qualifying laps where you're just like, he hasn't shown pace in any practice session. He qualifies on pole or P2 or P3. And then once he's up there, no one's going to really pass him on track. So Verstappen's a little bit of a wild card who I'm not willing to just completely throw out yet, unless FP3 also looks really bad. Then I just don't want to, I don't want to spend that much money for him. I'll wait for him to drop value and then maybe look at him at a discount for Zandvoort.
Let's see. Tier 3, 5 drivers, all pretty close. Maybe one standout here at the top. We have Albon at 17.9, Alonso 15.4, Hulk 14.9, Gasly 14.6, Behrman 14.3. Ryan, what are we calling these guys?
This is the get off my lawn tier.
Ah.
Alonso, the old man, starting to feel his age, hurting his back, can't get into the car for FP1. And also just like kind of my old man yells at cloud part of this tier is that I'm kind of sick of talking about this group of guys who just never can get into or out of talent driver eligibility. They just hit that ceiling and just kind of bounce around. And that's also, I think I never make the right choice on them. Whichever week I choose somebody, they do horrible. If I try and fade someone, then they have a nice week. I can't pick the right talent driver. So this is get off my lawn tier. I'm sick of these guys. And we've got old man Alonso.
So for context, in this tier, you have Albon with average points per race this season of 131, Alonso 115, Hulkenberg 125, Gasly 111, Behrman 112. Hulkenberg at a $1.8 million drop after the last race. If we're talking about gaining value, seems like maybe there's some upside, but he is still ranked 9th. Like what's his ceiling? I'm looking at his salary this year. Well, last race was the highest he'd ever been.
He's basically there. He's in a Sauber.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't see much value here, to be honest. I think this is a tough choice and probably be determined mostly by talent driver selection.
I would actually argue if we're talking
really?
about talent drivers, like all three of these bottom tiers, there is a viable candidate for talent driver, which is going to make that choice real interesting this week.
Do you see any of these 5 that have like a ton of upside?
I think if Aston's pace is for real, there's a lot of upside for Alonso. Like they're looking like they could be well into the points this weekend. And that would be great for them. That would be great for Aston as a constructor if they could get double points. That should really move them up in terms of value. I think Albon is going to be on the decline. He's the one that I'm least likely to touch here. I'm probably next least likely to touch Gasly because Alpine, and they're not looking great either. So if I want to rank these drivers, I like Alonso best. I think Alonso is a strong candidate for talent driver. I think Oliver Behrman is takeable. I think Hulkenberg becomes a lot more marginal. Let me try this. Like maybe I'll be a bit louder this way. I'm being told I'm a bit quiet.
That sounds better.
Okay, so yeah, I like Alonso best. If you didn't hear me, Behrman I like next best. Hulkenberg I think is a somewhat marginal signing, and I am not interested in Albon or Gasly this week. I think Albon is pretty overpriced. Practice didn't look good. Also, I say like Alonso, you're trusting that his back doesn't hurt tomorrow, that he doesn't, sleep on it the wrong way, he doesn't sneeze too hard, and then we see Felipe Drugovich again. So that's my thought on this tier. It sort of is what it is in terms of pace.
I completely agree on Albon being overpriced. I think I would have said he was overpriced even before today. Just expecting a normal Williams run out in the practice sessions, but I think they looked worse than expected, which just makes them look even more overpriced. Alonso, you're right. If the thing is though, if the Aston pace is for real, Alonso is a good option, but I think there's a better option, which would be his teammate for $5 million cheaper, which, spoiler alert, I'll be running Lance Stroll talent driver yet again because I'm a psycho. And I do think Gasly looked really bad this morning. But again, I think I said last show, I'm done making opinions on Pierre Gasly and telling people what to do with Pierre Gasly, because if I say he's going to be bad, he scores points. If I say he's going to be good, he finishes P17. So I have no Gasly takes because I've retired from that. And thank you, Michael Toaster Boy, for admitting that I can't get it right shows maturity and growth. Which, to be fair, I don't know. I think I've admitted when I've been wrong throughout the show. I'm not wrong very often because I'm really good at this and really smart. But when I do get it wrong, I will say so.
Self-awareness is the core of emotional intelligence, Ryan. So you are developing.
We're a very emotionally intelligent show, I would say.
Of the Aston drivers, I trust Alonso more to not screw it up. But you're right about Stroll, and that we'll get to Stroll eventually. But I think there's a lot more upside there from improvement points if Stroll's going to be finishing in the points this week, because Stroll's had a rougher go than Alonso.
That is absolutely for sure. Okay, I don't have any more commentary here. This tier is pretty boring to me.
Yeah, I don't think we said much on Behrman. I think he's just properly priced. He actually looked okay this morning, but at the same time, there are better options, I think, that are cheaper than Behrman. But if you have him, I wouldn't drop him by any means. He's just kind of there, Oliver Behrman.
Okay, next tier. We got tier 4. Again, 5 drivers in tier 4. We have Esteban Ocon at 13.6 million. Let's see, what did he do? Finished 15th last weekend. Liam Lawson finished 8th last weekend at 12.7 million. Went up 2 million in value. Hadjar, 20th. A rough week for him. He's had an incredible season. So we did predict for quite some time he was at his ceiling. And eventually we were correct. Sonoda at 12 million. Kimi Antonelli at 11.8. Ryan?
This is the Creep tier. Famous song, Creep by Radiohead. What the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here. And that is in reference to having a Red Bull and a Mercedes in this tier, cheaper than both V-Carbs and a Haas. I mean, it's crazy that we've gotten to this point of the season and it's a Mercedes and a Red Bull this cheap in our game, and probably rightfully so.
And the Sauber.
I think this only happens. I think this only happens at the end of a vehicle development cycle like we're in. I mean, I think like if next year wasn't a new chassis, it would be so odd for this to be taking place.
Yeah, I think Antonelli's bad luck happens regardless of what the rule package is, and I think it's more of like we saw this with Perez last year with Red Bull. Like as the season went on. Like Red Bull was operating like a one-car team under Christian Horner the last year and a half in particular. And Warren Mekis seems to have a different philosophy. So we'll see if Sonoda can start to score some points and get it a little bit closer to his teammate.
Tommy Moe would argue against you, saying that talent driver #1 ranking is Kimi.
I do like Kimi.
I don't have him as my #1 talent driver. I think Kimi Antonelli is a very viable talent driver choice.
Mm-hmm.
Of this tier, I really like Hadjar, and I like Antonelli next best. He's not quite as consistent, and they're both rookies. Antonelli hasn't quite lived up to the Mercedes pace yet, like looking at his teammate. But there's a lot of upside there, and you have at least 4 weeks of talent eligibility ahead of you with Antonelli being at 11.8 million. He can only go up 2 million a week at most. So it'd take him 4 weeks to get back above 18 million. I like them. I like them the best. I think they're both viable choices for talent driver. I think we'll do talent driver rankings once we get through all these driver tiers, but I like them the best. There's nobody else in this tier that I'm dying to have. If I'm going to take anyone else from this tier, it would be Lawson.
Would you go long on Hadjar at this point? I'm just looking at his value. He had an incredible run all the way up to 18.5 million. And now has dropped to 12.1.
That's an interesting question.
It seems like there's a lot of value. Now I don't know. I'm not in tune as much as I probably should be or need to be with what's going on over at VCarb, if it's a car thing or a driver thing. But it seems like he's just having a slight drought that he'll probably come out of.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what it's all about, apart from some, like I said, some bad luck. He had 2 races ago, he had the collision with Antonelli.
Right.
Last time out, Belgium, the pit strategy did not quite work out, I guess, as far as the switch over from Inters. So that burned him. I think that there is room to grow. Like, I don't think he's going to jump past the talent driver cutoff, but I think he's got a couple of good weeks in him. So... Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't think any of these drivers ever make it above the 18 million throughout the rest of the season. But kind of what we were talking about with the chat, like Antonelli is a phenomenal choice. It's exactly the same handicap as I think I said last week, which is He's cheap and he's in a Mercedes. And if you liked him at 13.8, you're going to love him at 11.8. He's had some bad luck, but at the same time, like he's shown he's a talented driver, and and he's in a Mercedes. It's too hard to pass up. Like he should be, I think, on every single roster for a 5-race contract. I put him on for 5 races last week, so I still have him for 4 more. I would recommend bringing him on because I think he has the most room to grow of pretty much any driver in the entire game at this point. Because I think he should be around 17, 18 million is probably his fair price. And he probably will get there, assuming he starts finishing races, which I think he will. It's just been, things just happen. That's racing. So
you're saying Antonelli?
I'm very high on Antonelli, especially at this price point. I think this is a ridiculous discount, and he should be rostered for the long term. And the guy I have my eye on is Sonoda as well, because he's cheap right now. He finally got the same, I think it was the same floor that Max has. He looked a little bit better the other week. He actually looked okay this morning too, which is good. We'll see what happens. It's still Yuki Tsunoda, so he's hard to trust. But if Max does take a step back, that gap between teammates does lessen. And he has shown he has some speed in qualifying last week, even though he moved backwards in the race. But he's someone I have my eye on, not necessarily pulling the trigger on yet. I just think that Antonelli is so attractive in this tier that I'm kind of bypassing the rest of it.
I wish I didn't have him on cooldown.
Any other thoughts on tier 4? Doing good on time here. Last tier for drivers, then we'll get into constructors. At the bottom of the board, Carlos Sainz, $11.7 million, dropped 1.8, 18th in Belgium. Bortoletto, 10.9, up 2 million in Belgium, finished 9th. That was an outstanding result for him. Lance Stroll, Mr. Coaster, 14th, 9.7 million. Then at the very bottom, we have Colapinto at 6.1. What are we calling this tier, Ryan?
This is the should we plan the intervention tier. This is about the time where friends and family are looking at you and they're like, maybe it's time for an intervention because they're starting to see the signs of you slipping. And now we have Carlos Sainz in this tier. That I don't know. That was really stupid, but it's been a long time.
Hey, it's hard to come up with these tiers week after week.
It is, especially with this in IndyCar. I got to come up with like 10 tiers a week almost, and it gets hard. Like I try not to repeat. I have an entire running list. I'm like, oh, that's too close to the other one.
Let's see. Any discounts you see here?
This whole tier is about Lance Stroll, and that is it. And part of this is I know that I am the Lance Stroll kind of mouthpiece here. It's just like how I love Logan Sargent and all these other horrible drivers that we make fun of all the time. But he legitimately is a great price at 9.7. He looked very good this morning. If Aston Martin's pace is real, then Lance Stroll is in the same tier for me as Kimi Antonelli in terms of like the guys that I want the most on my team. It's like you need one McLaren, and then I think you need Antonelli and Stroll.
We'll talk about constructors in a second, but if your choice was between Lance Stroll or Aston Martin as a constructor, are you dividing risk going with the constructor now that they've dropped 2.4 million?
Give me Lance Stroll. I love Lance Stroll way too much to just not say Lance Stroll. I'll probably go with both of them. I'll probably go Aston Martin and Lance Stroll. I want all my eggs in the Lance Stroll basket. What could possibly go wrong? God. He's cheap and he's good, and he is going to score in the points this weekend. Lance Stroll will finish in the top 10. Mark my words.
William, do you have any opinions about that?
So if I have to choose between one or the other, Lance Stroll or Aston Martin, it depends on who my talent driver is going to be. If I have a Hadjar and Antonelli and Alonso, then I can take Aston over Stroll. If whatever reason I have them all on lockout somehow, then I'm taking Lance Stroll and I'm making him my talent driver. Stroll is a very boomer bust driver, and this week is no exception. He could finish in the points. He could finish in the wall.
Yeah.
And we just hope for the former. And I like Stroll. The rest of the tier, I never liked Colapinto. Bortoletto had that nice moment last week. He scored a couple of points. And this week, I think Sauber's come a little bit back down to earth looking at the practice times. So not interested in him this week. I keep saying Sainz is going to get close to his teammate. Well, he got close to his teammate in practice because they both stunk. So I'm not interested in touching any Williams this week. So yeah, Stroll's the only takeable one, and he is a viable choice for talent driver. And we should probably discuss that. Like, what's our talent driver ranking? Because there's so many choices.
Oh man,
I don't know. I think there's only two
like
choices.
Oh really? Well, let's take Lance Stroll off the board, Ryan. I know that's.
Then there's only one choice. It's in every single lineup. If I put together 100 lineups, it would be Antonelli and Stroll would be a talent driver on either of those. I'm not really looking at any other driver in the talent tier. I think those two, especially at price and how they've looked in FP1 and FP2. This could all change. Obviously, they could look horrible tomorrow. Who knows? Things are weird. But at this point in the week, I think it's probably Kimmy's number one, followed by Stroll number two, and part of like.
I mean, you're okay. So you're basing this off of who is most undervalued and likely to score a ton of PI points / overtake points / have recovery. Because if we're looking at this purely from a numbers perspective, the highest average points per race in this tier, in order, are Albon at 131, Hülkenberg at 125, and then next is Antonelli at 122. Lance Stroll's at 107.
So I have a talent driver order. I actually have 4 drivers in my viable talent driver radar. Number 1 for me this week, God help me, it's Lance Stroll. Oof. Number 2,
Isaac 1.
Hadjar. I have Isaac Hadjar number 2. Looking good in practice, and he's been on a bit of a downswing, so some more room for improvement points. Number 3 for me, Fernando Alonso. Like, we see if he's a point contender every week. I like Alonso. And then number 4 for me is Antonelli. He's always off his teammates' pace. Like, he's like borderline in the points most weeks. We have yet to see the breakthrough run from Kimi Antonelli. So I actually have him 4th right now. Some of it's not his own fault, but I'm just looking at the data that I've got.
You guys Michael Toasterboy says he's dumping Hadjar to pick up Stroll as soon as this call's over.
Because he said he wants to lose points.
You want to
he's making fun of me.
That feels like a liability.
Okay, I do want to make this clear. This is Tommy's comment, which is I was going to say partially making fun of me, but I think it's 100% making fun of me. With the Stroll over Alonso, a big part of this is price related. If they were both $15 million or 14, if they were both the same price, I would be taking Fernando Alonso over Lance Stroll. But a big part of this is that I can get Lance Stroll for $5 million cheaper, which allows me to put that, stack my lineup elsewhere.
He only has an average of 8 points per race more than Lance Stroll for the season.
And Stroll's improvement index is 15.
Yeah, so there are other factors that if Fernando Alonso is more likely to have a better finish than Lance Stroll. That is 100% true. He's a more consistent driver. He's a better driver, and he probably does better than Lance on Sunday. But Lance Stroll is a lot cheaper. He has a lot more upside in points in our game. And you just get to save so much money that you can put elsewhere. You could probably roster both McLarens if you're using Stroll as your talent driver, which is what I'm planning to do.
Exactly. We can deploy that money in so many better places. $5 million is a very real amount in this game. And there may be more efficient ways to deploy that money than taking Alonso.
Yeah. But yes, it has to be said. It is a very risky strategy because at the end of the day, it is Lance Stroll. So do with that what you will, but that is a lot of my reasoning.
How many races would you sign Lance Stroll for if you were new contract today?
5, because if Aston's pace is for real, there's a lot of room for growth there. And if it's not, it's a very cheap and easy cut. It's
Yeah, that's a
not
good
going to be that
point.
expensive. Like I would much rather try and capture a huge upside and potentially have to pay a very small drop fee than sign him short term and miss out on a $2 million jump down the road because I had him on lockout.
Yeah,
I've just gotten burned too many times by him.
yeah. Looking at some historical results, Dutch Grand Prix was fairly mediocre last year. Monza will probably favor the Mercedes power units if I had to guess. Stroll actually podiumed at Azerbaijan back when he was driving for Williams. So that's worth noting. And then if we're saying Aston is going to be decent at Hungary, I like their chances at Singapore, which is a street course and going to be tighter as long as Stroll doesn't hit anything, which, big if. And then you have him on cooldown for Austin, which will be a sprint weekend, and maybe you want him on cooldown anyway.
It's still crazy that his podium was at Baku. Like if I had to rank the tracks where I would expect a Lance Stroll podium, that's near the bottom.
There was a chance that he was going to win that thing.
It was just like it's so tight.
That
like,
was
I can't
where
believe Lance
that was
Stroll
the
kept
race
it out.
where Sebastian Vettel was asking when he did dangerous driving after he ran into Hamilton. It was the race where Kimi was demanding the gloves.
Weird stuff happens there. Whether it's Hamilton forgetting to brake or we got fuel issue. It's just I'm excited to get to that race. That's always a fun one.
I think we're done with tiers for drivers, and we only have about 20 couple minutes left. So let's get into constructors. Ryan does not name constructor tiers because he does have things to do, believe it or not. But we do have 4 tiers for constructors, and much like drivers, I think the first tier is not really much of a discussion because it's McLaren all by themselves at 29.1 million. Is anyone recommending signing McLaren as a constructor? I probably wouldn't. If I'm signing, the top of the price pool, I'm usually assigning it to a driver, not a constructor. That's just me. I'm not sure I can tell you why, statistically speaking or strategically, but I usually like more flexibility to assign drivers at the bottom, especially when there's a sprint weekend. So I don't know. I don't feel there's a lot of upside there when you could sign either of the drivers individually.
It's a good thing we don't have a sprint for a while.
Yeah, we do not.
Until Austin. McLaren is signable. There may be more efficient ways to use the money. This has been a weird year, and that we have so many drivers that are viable signings in that like 15-ish million range, like the 12 to 15 million range, that maybe we invest more on the driver's side. But if you want to lock up McLaren for 5 races, like if you have, say, 125 million worth of bank, like I'm okay with that. Like if this were a year where there were a clear number 2 that was like 3rd, 4th most weeks, then I'd shy away from that just because the point gain isn't that tremendous. But this isn't one of those years. Like it seems like every race we have a different second best team. So it's kind of all over here. So
McLaren is a luxury signing. If you have just a ton of budget, then go for it because they're going to get you points. You're signing them full well knowing you're not going to gain any value out of it. But we're at the point in the season where points are becoming more and more important as we hit that threshold of reaching the summer break, and people start to transition towards points prioritizing over value. But I don't know. I like to use constructors as kind of a value builder just because they can go up, 3 million max. It's hard to nail that down, but it's like Aston Martin just lost 2.4. I'm going to like them this week because I think they're on a discount. I would rather deploy my funds towards top drivers than just rostering McLaren.
I tend to lean more towards points once we get past Monza personally. Like we get past like the ends of the European part of the season. Like Azerbaijan, I guess, is Europe enough, but like once we get out of Europe, that's usually for me when I draw the line, like thinking much more about points than gaining value. That said, like you get a bargain every now and then.
So we have there's a game question from Amazing Ricardo. It says, any chance of getting the revised rule set game wide this season? I think what he's referring to is some of the administrator controls. And Michael, our CTO, is out today sick. I will apprehensively speak on his behalf, and I might regret this, but I'm pretty sure, William, you might know that will be coming out. I know that it is on. We are testing it on our production app amongst the team.
Yeah, we'll see these customizations hopefully get rolled out towards the end of the season, and
And
then I think start of 2026 you're going to see a bit of a facelift as far as game customizations and leaderboards and all those things across all of our sports. F1, IndyCar, we're the official fantasy game of IndyCar, also our NASCAR game.
so the changes currently you can make as an admin of a league is you can assign players points manually, either add or remove. You can adjust players' bank balances manually. Those are things that you need to be very careful doing as an admin if you want to keep your friends in the league. Um, but the first kind of iteration of game customization will allow you to do several things. One of them is turn off or on the minimum point rule. So right now, if you completely miss a lineup or miss it by probably 3 positions, everyone gets a minimum of 650 points, and that's just to keep the game somewhat even and fair. If someone misses a lineup, so they're not completely out of the water. So we would turn that off and on. You will be able to turn the one race lockout rule off and on. You will be able to change the minimum and maximum contract length, which is currently right now minimum's 5, minimum's 1, maximum's 5. And you will be able to change the team value floor. So right now, the way the game works is if you release a driver and your team has less than $100 million, we kind of automatically up it to 100 so that you're not stuck not being able to sign a driver. So you'll be able to either turn that off or change the number from maybe 100, maybe you want it to 95. So a lot of those things, those 4 things are iteration number 1, and then we plan to continue to add a lot more customization as time goes on.
I hear talk about the hardcore league. I can't share the link to it in the chat, but on our Discord we do have a beta hardcore mode, as we call it, where every contract is one race and there's no salary floor, and we still have the lockout, so you have a whole new lineup every week. I lost $3 million in that last week, so I have even more fun setting my lineup this week. But like that's the extreme end of it. uh, and then we'll have much more casual modes where we don't have the cooldown rule. Like that'll be a change, among other things. So yeah, easier ways to play it, harder ways to play it. I happen to like the classic. I like the classic game. I think it's a pretty solid game as well. But people like to play fantasy different ways, and we look forward to offering that to all of you. So yeah,
for sure, that'd be great. Let's see. Let's go on to second tier for construction. We got
Constructors.
Ferrari. Yeah, we got Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull. 26, 4, 22, and 21.1 million. Pretty decent spread between 3 different choices. Thoughts here?
Ferrari acceptable, but I'm not excited. Mercedes, meh. Red Bull, I want no part of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this one's a one to avoid. Just if you had to pick, I mean, for the sake of the exercise, Ferrari has average points of 142, Mercedes at 140, Red Bull's at 132. So I feel like, to me, if I had to pick one of these, it'd be probably Ferrari.
If I have the money to spare. I mean, Ferrari's
Yeah,
looking good this week. Mercedes looking less good this week, despite those averages looking fairly close. Like if it's going to be 142 versus 140, it's Mercedes all day. But I don't think Mercedes is going to show up like fighting for podiums this week.
Yeah,
I think
Red
Antonelli's
Bull.
going to be fighting for points. Forget podium.
Yeah, Red Bull and Mercedes just I don't think fit in any lineups for anybody. It just doesn't. It's just too expensive, and I don't think you're going to get like that floor of points that you're looking for. Ferrari is probably a strong choice, but I would say overpriced at this point. You're almost better off spending the extra 2-3 million just to get to McLaren because they're so much safer and so much better. I think that the gap between those two teams should be much more than 2.7. And I think if you're not going McLaren, I think you just have better options down the board. But yeah, if forced to pick one of these three, I would probably just bite the bullet and go Ferrari and spend the extra money, because if I'm spending this much money, then I want points, and I think Ferrari is in the best position to put up solid points versus these other two with higher potential of disaster.
Yeah, I agree. All right, tier 3 V-Carb Williams Kick Sauber, very, very close in price here. Almost, I mean, it's 14.3 at the top and 14 flat at the bottom. Average points per race, you have Red Bull Racing Bulls V-Carb at 116, Kick at 100, Haas at 105. So this is a tough one because obviously Sauber has kind of just recently jumped into here. So I don't know if looking at their average points for the whole season is very indicative of.
Yeah, Kick Sauber got a kick in the pants for sure.
Yes.
That said, I think they're getting kicked back to the back of the grid this week. So yeah, this tier, V-Carb, Williams, Sauber, no. That's my opinion. No. Maybe V-Carb, but no.
Yeah, it's the same thing as the tier above. Just you could sum it up with one word, which is no. Exactly as William so eloquently put. There are better options that are cheaper. I think Williams is for sure a stay away, just because they did not look that good. They're a little expensive. I don't see the point in using them over V-Carb, who has looked significantly better and probably is better. And yeah, full props to what Kick Sauber has done this year. It's been an incredible run that I don't think anyone saw coming, myself included. But at 14 million, that's just, I can't get myself there. Maybe they have another great performance and just blow everybody away again, and they're 15 million next week. If so, I'll just tip my cap and be like, all right, I missed out on that. But I'm not paying $14 million for Kick Sauber as a constructor. I just can't.
So let's go to the last tier then, because we're run out of time and we want to get Williams' $100 million lineup of the week. Everybody's kind of said no, not excited about anybody so far. That leaves us the last tier of 3 drivers. And I think we're probably all going to be choosing the same, or 3 constructors. I think we're all probably going to be choosing the same one. We have Haas at 12.6, Aston Martin at 12.3, Alpine at 8.2. All very similar in average points. Haas 105, Aston Martin 102, Alpine 96. Aston Martin, to me, is the clear value play here at a drop last race of 2.4 million. Everything you guys are saying about Stroll, I mean, is there a pick outside of this that you see?
I can take Alpine if that ends up for your lineup being the difference between, say, taking Russell and taking Piastri.
Mm-hmm.
Then I could just stick Alpine in the slot. Apart from that, Aston's the best choice. Like, if we're ranking these constructors in terms of quality, Aston's at a discount. Aston's looking good in practice. I think Aston's going to get you some more bang for the buck.
Would you take? Would you, if you were stuck in this position, would you take Aston Martin and Colapinto, or would you take Lance Stroll and Alpine?
I like Stroll and Alpine. Well, I think that if we're going to talent driver Stroll, I like Stroll and Alpine better. If I'm not going to talent driver Stroll, if I have better options like Alonso or Hadjar, then okay, we have better options, but like acceptable options. That's what I'll say.
There are no better options.
Like if I have other acceptable options, then I'm more interested in Aston to diversify the risk a little bit, and then Colapinto and hope he doesn't crash, and maybe hope other people have problems, because Colapinto's looking like he's going to be last car running candidate once again.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be him and Bortoleto far too often.
Yeah, and let's just say Aston Martin is, I think, the clear pick. As we don't need to beat that dead horse. I'll only beat the dead horse if it's Stroll. I'll talk about him all day. But if you are on lockout for Aston Martin, like some of us may be, like I may be, I think Haas is rosterable. Ocon, Behrman just might be decent here. It's still cheap. They're definitely not better than Aston Martin. It is for sure a downgrade, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But at this point, it might just be I might just be stuck with Alpine to just save money. It is not a good position to be in if you can't use Aston Martin, and that's where I unfortunately am. Yeah, so I'm still trying to figure that one out, but it might be Haas, it might be Alpine. It just depends on where I can fit the rest into my lineup.
Yeah, Haas is definitely not as good as Aston, but they're better than Alpine, and I think they're better than Sauber this week, and I think they're better than Williams this week. And okay, Red Bull, Sonoda had some semi-respectable results in second practice. If Red Bull is just looking like garbage tomorrow, who knows? That's the real wild card.
I mean, it's more just if Max doesn't show up, then Red Bull isn't even a team. Like they might as well not even start the race because Sonoda at best is what P10, and that's a stretch. And if you don't have Max, who's the guy who's just consistently been podium contender, if he's not showing up, then oh man, that's going to get bad quick.
Yeah, it'd be hard to say that Haas will be better than Red Bull, but I'm just going to entertain the thought. Just like there's a chance Red Bull's that bad. Not a big chance, but a non-zero chance.
If Max isn't what we have become accustomed to Max being, Haas could very easily, in the way our game is, outscore Red Bull as constructor, and honestly, probably will.
Or it could just turn out that Red Bull is who we thought they were, and they qualify well, like they always do.
That would be wild. Okay, 9 minutes left. William, you want to hit us with your $100 million lineup for the week? If by chance anyone's in a league where they have a fresh team, they got $100 million, they have no history, William has put together his perfect scenario for what you do.
Okay, we'll start with, we'll go over last week's $100 million lineup. Not quite the best. I only scored 851 million.
Wow, that's a lot of points.
Yeah, that would be a record. 851 points last week with Piastri, Hamilton, Antonelli, Talent Driver. That's what really burned me. Sainz, Behrman, and Alpine. So that's last week. That's also what I did with the first hardcore lineup. So I have all of them on lockout in my hardcore league. Let's go with my I can do whatever I want lineup. I've got Leclerc, Russell, Alonso, Antonelli, Stroll, Talent Driver, and Aston for 99.8 million. I am all in on Aston Martin. In the hardcore, I've got Leclerc, Russell, Hadjar, Bortoleto, Stroll, and Aston, since we have the lockout considerations there. But yeah, Leclerc, Russell, Alonso, Antonelli. I am putting a lot of faith in Aston. Maybe this totally blows up tomorrow morning. Maybe third practice looks terrible for Aston somehow. Maybe Alonso throws his back out and we have to rework things. But this is where I'm at right now. And if I did have to make a change, and we could swap, say, Alonso for Hadjar if I didn't want nothing but Astons. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Thoughts?
I mean, all in Aston.
Like, why not? Yeah. I mean, it is always risky anytime you go all in on a team like that. But look, I think so much of this is dependent on the exact situation some of our players are in, how much in the lead they are, how much behind they might be. Michael's not here, so no one has mentioned league adoption today.
That's true.
His favorite.
I probably should pass along. Mike sent me a message saying that the real reason he's not on the show today is because he's scared to face the chat after having a really bad week last week and the week before. So that's why he said he's been ducking out on the show so often.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. But Michael is the foremost expert on league adoption. And, we are getting into the point of the season. If you're neck and neck, we're all signing a roster out of the same pool of 20 drivers. So league adoption does come into play and will come into play more and more. Sometimes you have to make a contrarian pick. And sometimes you got to take a little bit of risk. And I think this weekend, Aston Martin is like the clear high upside, but also high risk choice where if you get it right, it definitely could jump you some positions on the leaderboard.
And with the league adoption, this chat, everybody here, we love all of you. This is a safe space. Don't tell anyone else about Lance Stroll. Don't go tell your friends that Lance Stroll is going to finish in the points and is going to be awesome this week. You don't want anyone else adopting Lance Stroll. He needs to be our special secret. So nobody tell anyone about Lance Stroll and how it's the best pickup of the week.
Definitely don't anybody clip this and put it on social media.
Actually do that. We actually share as much as you can. Maybe don't share the Lance Stroll clips, but share something from the show. Tell your friends about the show so maybe they can come in next week. But don't tell them about Lance Stroll specifically.
Just clip me saying the word no.
Oh my god. So much Stroll commentary the last 2 weeks. I never would have thought about it, dude.
Our show devolves into, we were like the official Logan Sargent show. Now we're the official Lance Stroll show. I think it's mostly
we really do like the underdog.
McLaren gets so much attention. Red Bull gets so much attention. What about the midfielders? What about the back markers? Back in the day, this probably would have been the minority cast.
Yeah, if you're consuming F1 content, you turn on the TV, they're probably talking about Piastri and Norris and the championship race. You know what? You tune into our show. We're talking Lance Stroll. Like
that's right. You can't go anywhere else. This is the HQ for hearing about the third tier.
All F1 sickos are welcome.
Let's see. I think I'm going through our questions, and I feel like we're low on questions this week.
Aston, I saw that as a question from Tommy, and I think that's an interesting question. I'm probably just going to lock them up for 5 races, and if they look bad one week, I can cut them. And if you want me that bad, I'll lock.
That's exactly what I would do, especially with no sprint races coming up. Even if we did have a sprint race, I mean, they're priced like pretty close to the bottom.
Yeah, you're getting them at a good price right now. Yeah, Michael, a distressing number of F1 drivers are there because of the money. It used to be a lot worse back in the day. And you used to see people lose their rides mid-season because the check bounced.
But
that was
we need more of that. We need to bring that stuff back.
Yeah, Stroll being dependent on money is actually very fitting for our game because the big part of the handicap of liking him so much is money related. He's so cheap.
You get these random one-offs. Like who can forget Marcus Winkelhock driving for? I think they were called Midland that year. Who became the answer to a trivia question. He started last in a race and he started first in the same race. That was his one race in F1.
How do you do that?
So it was at the Nürburgring, and it was dry when they went on the formation lap. And he mostly spent his career driving touring cars in Germany. He had a lot of local knowledge of that track, and he knew it was about to rain. So he came in for wet tires. Everyone else started the race, and it started raining.
Oh, wow.
And he passed everybody. And then there was a red flag.
The opposite of Hamilton at Hungary a couple of years ago, where that was Hungary, right? He was the only one on the grid.
Yeah, the longest start in the history of the series.
That was great.
Yeah, that was just one of those little bits of trivia. But he was in the car because somebody's check bounced.
Was this at the full Nürburgring track at the Nordschleife?
They haven't run the Nordschleife since the 70s. This is
they got to bring that back. They need to bring that back. They need to bring back spare cars.
Give me the spare cars. Let's start there. Give me the spare cars. Let us go through an engine every weekend.
Yeah, spare cars would actually
engines to come back. I just get rid of this
I agree.
The last 4 races stuff.
I think spare cars would be a positive for the sport, because then you don't have all these ridiculous formation lap errors where then you have the whole grid gets messed up. Anyways, maybe we should start this spare car revival club.
We just need to wait for the 10-car pile up that ruins the show.
Yeah,
that's what it'll take. It's going to take them stinking up the show.
For sure. We're out of time. We are over for the day. Thanks for sticking with us if you're still here.
See you in a month.
See you in a month. Holy cow!
Unless you like IndyCar.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot to like about IndyCar right now.
There's seasons heading down the stretch. And
if you're not
next week, we got an IndyCar show next week.
If you're here and you're not watching IndyCar, especially this season, you're missing out on what most motorsports fans would argue is much better racing. So
I think they have the
check it
best
out.
track product going.
Oh yeah, for sure. Anyways, we thank you all for joining. We will see you, I hate saying it, in a month from now. No one likes the summer break. But it is a reality nonetheless. So enjoy the race this weekend. We hope that we've helped you in some way, shape, or form improve your team's value or improve your position in your league. And if you ever have questions, always remember you can reach support@gridrival.com. We're always here to help. Have a great weekend, and we will see you all soon.
See ya.
All right.